guys, Sean C. Phillips here with my August 6th DVD update. We talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the last 2 weeks or so. Like I always say, guys, enjoy these update videos. Definitely give this video a thumbs up. Leave me comments below what you guys saw the titles I checked out this update. Any titles coming up that you guys like me to review for future updates, and some of the things you guys have picked up recently. Now, the first one I got from Shout Factory's Scream Factory line. This is a movie that I've been waiting for to come out to Blu-ray for years. This is a movie that I truly think is one of the creepiest movies I've ever seen. Like, I remember the first time I saw this movie, how bad it creeped me out, especially the scene of the one guy reaching his hand in the wall, grabbing these coins, going into like the embalming room where they had the bodies and stuff in this asylum. But I remember it creeped me out so bad I had to keep pausing this movie years ago because I watched this when it first came out to DVD. It's a movie called Session 9, which like I said is super creepy film and really does hold up and has some really creepy aspects. It really is on the similar kind of creepy feeling that The Shining had, of that just super creepy build up and all this weird stuff you're discovering about this building. But the movie's basically though about this asylum that was, had all these real like crazy things that happened to it in the past, and had some really bad past too, because they were talking about how they think it might have closed just because of the time in the 80s. A lot of these places were going out of business and being shut down for their practices, and just were not the things were changing in society at the time with this kind of a place. But they also had to deal with too, there was like this history about this woman there and what had happened to her, and they were thinking that she might have had something to do with this place closing down. But essentially, though, the story is about a guy who works for a company that cleans out asbestos. And he comes in there to talk to the guy who runs this building and kind of talking to him about the price and how much it would, would cost for him to go in there, clean out all the asbestos, how much it would be for him to put together a team, and how long it would take. And he was saying how the other guys were saying that it would take him a couple weeks. And so he's like desperate for this job. He absolutely needs to get this job because he has a new child that was born, and, he needs this money and knows that his business is going to go out of business if he doesn't get this. So he basically says, listen, I'll be in and out of here in a week. I'll get it all cleaned out. I'll put together this good team. I'll get it all done. I'll be way quicker than the other ones. So he's like, okay, hires them on. Of course, so this guy really isn't equipped to do this at all. It's a job that really would, at the lowest, would take 2 weeks. But essentially, though, he goes in there with his team. One of the team members there, who's helping clean out this building, is screwing around in the basement and ends up discovering these tapes. And he starts listening to these tapes. And it's this schizophrenic woman has these multiple personalities, and he's listening to these creepy tapes. And throughout the movie, he's listening to these. And of course, as soon as he starts listening to these tapes, something starts happening, and weird things start happening to the people. And it's just that one of those movies that's like, it's not like lots of like, it's more of like a real build-up movie. It just keeps building up and up and up and up and up to more like of this really creepy feel of this movie. For some reason, too, it's certain scenes of this remind me, too, of like Day of the Dead in the underground stuff. I don't know why. Like, I always thought of that, too, just some of the scenes when they're going around these tunnels and stuff. But really love this movie. Brendan Sexton III is in this movie, too, as one of the guys cleaning up. And David Caruso was in this one. And this was actually one of the few movies that he was in. And I actually thought he was actually really pretty good in this. It has on here, too, a brand new featurette on the movie, talking to the director and some of the cast members about making the movie. And it also has Sean Clark's segment on here, Horror's Hallowed Grounds, when he goes to the locations and shows them now. And since this place, though, where they shot this is now turned into apartments, luckily enough, he has footage from 2002 or 3, pretty soon after this movie was shot, when he actually goes into the location at night and shows it. So it's pretty cool to see it there. And then he also shows some of the other locations they shot it as well now, and out front of that what the building looks like now, because a lot of it's gone. But this is just a really creepy movie. I would highly recommend this movie. Also has on here the deleted scenes on here and the alternate ending, which are definitely worth checking out as well if you guys have not seen them before. The next one I watched from Lionsgate, which I just finished watching, is a movie called Sundown. It's basically about these two friends, or these high school seniors that are getting ready to graduate soon, and the one kid really wants to be like a DJ, and he is making all kinds of beats and all kinds of music, like electronic kind of music, and his parents are kind of like not really supporting him and ready more for him to go to college and stuff like that. And his dad is like real protective of all of his stuff. And the one night, though, him and his friend want to go to this party, and they take the dad's car, which is this really expensive car. They drive it out, and the dad doesn't know. And of course, though, when they're out there, someone at the party throws up on the car. It becomes a huge mess, and they're bringing the car back to the house, and the dad's like, I can't believe you took the car out. I can't trust you. So then he ends up saying to his father, like, please, you can trust me. And like, he kind of convinces him that. that. And he's like ends up getting this cruise for his parents to go on, and says, listen, when you're gone, you can trust me. And the father gives him this watch that's like it was his father's watch, and saying, you know, if you pay, you know, can keep this from getting screwed up, and you don't mess with my car when I'm gone, you know, maybe I can trust you again. Of course, though, when the parents leave, the two friends end up going to Mexico, because the one girl that was at the party they were going to, played by Sarah Paxton, is talking about how she's going to Mexico, and the one guy really likes her. So he basically wants to go there to try and see her. Of course, it's one of those kind of things when they go to Mexico, like, they have all these kind of problems there. The guy, though, who's driving them around, the Chewy's his name, I really loved his character. There's some really great stuff going on with him, but essentially, though, kind of had the feel of the In-Betweeners movie a little bit, but they go there. And what ends up happening, though, is they're at the one, this rave kind of party at night, and the one guy ends up talking to this one girl there, and the watch, of course, ends up getting taken by her because of, you know, he didn't have the money to pay her, and he found out she was a prostitute. But essentially, that's where the movie really kicks in, because they have to figure out how they're going to get this watch back, and it becomes a huge to-do. I thought it was actually a very fun movie, and had some cool stuff in it. You know, Stevie Aoki, who was in this movie, too, who does, you know, electronic dance music, and it had a like that kind of vibe to the whole movie about this kid who really had that was his dream of doing that. But like I said, I really like this one. It has on here deleted scenes, and it's like a 35-minute making of on this one. And the one guy was from Ned's Declassified, the lead in this one. The other guy was from that movie that I really like called High School, which was kind of a fun movie. I feel like not a lot of people saw. The next one from Sony is the Angry Birds movie. A lot of people were asking me if I saw this one, and was definitely interested in checking it out. I got a cool thing too with it, which are these, like, a promo item of like these stick-on eyebrows of the Angry Birds character. But the movie is basically, I don't think I ever played the actual game, but I know it was like you were shooting like the birds at like pigs or something like that. I think that's what it was. I don't know though. Like I said, I never actually played the game, but it's basically though about this whole island of all these birds, and they're all real positive except for the one bird you know, I think his name is Red, because he's the red bird, and he's kind of really negative in this island. And of course there's these other negative guys too. But basically though, the plot though is he's kind of always, you know, in a bad mood, and like people are saying, hello, how's it going? He's like, oh, it's all right, and he's causing all kinds of problems, and you know, he ends up messing things up, and people start to dislike him, and one thing he does wrong goes really bad, and he ends up getting sent to anger management, and he meets these other guys that are kind of angry and upset as well. But basically what ends up happening though is this ship, because like these birds believe that they're in this one small island where this is all there is in the world, is this island of these birds. But all of a sudden this ship comes, and there's these pigs on the ship, these two pigs, and they're like, oh yeah, we've come here, and there's a whole bunch there's, you know, there's just us, and we've come here to see you, and these birds are all excited about this, because they're finally, you know, discovering that there is other people out there besides them, or other, you know, people in this universe. And of course, though, Red thinks that these pigs are up to no good, and he's starting to realize that there's a whole bunch of them, and he's trying to tell them, you know, these pigs are bad, and, you know, they're here for a reason, and they're going to screw things up, and they have their reason for coming there and what they're trying to do. And I want to say exactly what they're doing, but it's basically, though, it becomes a huge to-do, and they have to kind of go after these pigs because of what they were doing. I actually thought this was a pretty fun movie. Like I said, I was not very familiar at all with the game, but I don't think you really need to know the game at all, because I think the game was just kind of like shooting the birds at things, and they actually do put the slingshot aspect into this movie. But it has on here, though, 4 Hatchling shorts, which are after the credits, which are some short films on here, and it has deleted scenes, Meet the Hatchlings, bonus scene on here, making of the music, a whole bunch of different stuff on this one. But like I said, a really fun film. The next one, this is one I was really interested in seeing. I haven't watched a lot of the Batman animated films, like some of the ones I watched years back when I was a kid, and, you know, the voice actor Kevin Conroy, I think it's Kevin Conroy, you know, who is I think probably the best of the Batman voices, and I think he was the one who did the voice in the animated series in the early 90s, which is one I remember watching as a kid. But this is on Batman the Killing Joke. I, for some reason, used to think it was called Batman the Killing Joker, or The Killing of Joker, but no, it's Batman the Killing Joke. What's interesting about this one as well is it's actually rated R, so it's like it definitely has some real violence and stuff like that in it. I know it's got some like mixed opinions, because some of the people don't like the Batgirl character, because like Batman has a sex scene with her, and a lot of people are talking about that. was kind of weird and stuff. But I don't know. I actually thought this was actually a pretty cool movie, though. Like, especially when Joker comes in, and Mark Hamill is so good in that role. Like, he really is cool as Joker. I almost would like to see him play Joker in, like, real life and, like, the makeup and stuff. I think he'd actually be pretty cool. Like, a different kind of look Joker, but I think he'd be pretty cool at it. But the movie's basically, though, about, you know, Batman and the, you know, Joker's character has basically gotten out of the asylum, and he's kind of planning this whole thing that he's doing, and he's bringing in, like, he's doing something weird at this abandoned theme park, and it's all this kind of weird stuff going on, and of course Batman has to try and stop him. And, you know, the Batgirl character is in this one. I don't know if she was in any other ones or not. And she's voiced by Tara Strong, and she's kind of there, and she's like the love interest to him. But of course, though, she doesn't really want to mix being like with Batman and that. So it's like it's a whole weird thing going on. That's one thing like, a lot of people didn't like, though, was that plot of it, and they like it more when Joker comes in. But I thought it actually worked pretty well, and it also definitely sets up this. It's one of those things too where you definitely want to watch after the credits, because it definitely sets up what could happen next with these films. What it has on here, though, a feature on the film. It has 2 early episodes of Batman, the 1994 one on here, but I really did like this one a lot. The next one from Warner Brothers as well, and this is another one I had not saw when it was on TV, but I've been watching through this, and I believe the second season is going to be, I think it started on like CBS or something, and the second season is going to be on the CW, and Superman is going to kind of be in it from what I've heard. So before, in this one, you kind of just see him in shadows and a little bit, but like I think he's actually going to be a big part of the second season from what I've heard. But this is Supergirl, the complete first season of the show. And I actually thought this was a pretty fun show. It's not like when it was a lot of the other kind of things like Gotham and stuff like that, which are more in a dark tone. This is more of a kind of kids kind of tone, more PG and more positive kind of light thing to it, and I actually kind of like this one. It's basically, though, Supergirl, who is the cousin of Superman, and they have like the opening to this talking about how she was going to be sent down to Earth to kind of guard Superman, but she ends up basically getting sent to this other place by mistake instead, and she's there for like 24 years, and then she ends up, you know, staying and not aging at all, and then getting sent to Earth, and she actually stays with her, you know, the people that they put her with. And it's kind of interesting. The one guy is Dean Cain, you know, who actually played Superman in that Lois and Clark show. So I always remember that one. That was one thing I remember occasionally watching that one as a kid. But it's essentially, though, when she's on Earth, it's, you know, years later, and she, you know, her cousin is Superman. He's really known then and very popular, and the guy who's always saving the day. And she's kind of just working at a kind of a newspaper kind of daily kind of planet kind of place, you know, helping out there as like the assistant, and she's kind of keeping her powers to herself and not really doing anything. Of course, though, something ends up happening where she ends up having to actually show these powers, and of course by doing that, it kind of causes a whole thing, and now she has all these villains that she has to go and fight, and she finds out about them in the first episode. Like I said, I thought this was actually a pretty fun show. I like the actress that's playing Supergirl on this, and I think a lot of people are going to like this, so I thought, like, to me, it was a pretty fun show. Has on here, though, featurettes on the show, and then Supergirl, the 2015 Comic Con panel, on-air scenes, and a gag reel for this one. The next one from Warner Archive, and this is, I never actually knew this movie existed. This is the movie that was based on the story that The Revenant was based on. So this was from 1971, so it's kind of the same story that, you know, that Revenant was from. It changed some stuff around, though, like the aspect of the sun and some things like that, and also the bear attack happens much earlier than it does in The Revenant. This is basically about a guy who's like a guide, you know, who ends up, you know, taking these people out to look for bear pelts, and they're kind of hunting for bears and animals and things like that, to, you know, fur traders and stuff like that, and he ends up getting attacked and mauled by this bear. And it's just like in Revenant, though, it's like the same kind of thing with him, the 2 guys that stay behind him basically there after he's really terribly injured, and saying to basically bury him because they really don't think he's going to pull through. But one thing lends to another, they end up burying him. Of course, he's alive when they bury him, and he ends up basically coming back, you know, from basically the dead. You know, he didn't die, though, but he was like, comes back to the dead and seeks his revenge on trying to go back after these guys, and he's out there trying to survive by himself. And I don't know, I thought this was actually pretty cool. Like I said, it was cool to see this, because I said I never knew this existed at all. And, you know, it's Richard Harris, you know, who played in the first 2 Harry Potter movies, but he passed away. But I always liked him in the first films, and I don't know. I thought this was, like I said, pretty good. It was a different take on the thing, and it wasn't the same exact story because it didn't have the son character to it. But definitely, if you guys like The Revenant, I would definitely recommend checking this out to see kind of a different version of that story. The next one from IFC Films is a movie that stars Diane Kruger and Norman Reedus. And I wasn't sure if Norman Reedus was going to be in a lot of this movie, but he was. And, you know, best known for The Walking Dead and Boondock Saints. This is basically, though, about a woman who was on a trip to the U.S. with her husband. She's from France. And they're kind of there, and they're having like these arguments, and they're not really getting along with each other at all. And the one night they're at the hotel room, she ends up basically hitting over the head, and then thinking that kind of thinks he might have been killed. If someone had actually killed him, she ends up leaving this, you know, where it ended up happening, and kind of wandering out in kind of the middle of nowhere, because they were kind of out in the middle of like the desert kind of area on their trip. And it's kind of her kind of, it's like one of those kind of character pieces of her kind of wandering around through different kind of towns and different kinds of areas, through Vegas, and kind of the people that she meets and the kind of situations she gets into. Eventually, though, she ends up meeting Norman Reedus' character, and it's kind of about what ends up happening to her, and then she kind of starts to have a thing for him. And it's kind of like all these kind of situations and problems that happen to her. At the same time, too, you're knowing that something had happened to this husband and what's going to happen, and is he alive? And I don't know, I thought this was actually a pretty good character piece one on here. And if you guys are fans of Norman Reedus, too, he had a really pretty good role in this one. The next one from, and this is a Burn-on-Demand release, of a National Geographic show called The Strange Truth, and it has like I think like 4 episodes on here, and I really like this show. I had never seen this one before in my life, and it's basically though about strange facts dealing with movies. Like it's talking about the movie Roar, about how one of the most dangerous movies ever made. It talks about kind of strange things you wouldn't know about bugs like living on your face, and then like belly button kind of bugs, and all these kind of like weird facts. Like some of it says on here about like bizarre factoids about history. It talked about like stuff I never knew in my life about how they like stuff with Nazis, and how there was like these Nazi camps in America that kids went to in the 30s. They were like Nazi supporters. Like I never heard of that in my whole life, like that was going on in America. You always thought of that in Germany, but no, it was stuff like that in America. It was like crazy, that kind of stuff going on. And it was talking about like nuclear kind of sites and all kinds of stuff. I found this to be very interesting, and I liked the way it was cut together. It was kind of cut together almost kind of 90-ish, like 90s kind of, I don't know how to explain it, like almost like, I don't know, it just had that 90s kind of pop all over the place, kind of fun vibe to it, and just sort of like a silly take on all these kind of strange stuff. Maybe Bill and I the Science Guy kind of feel a little bit, or like Beekman's World kind of feel. The next one from National Geographic as well is Mine Hunters. It's another one that I had never seen before. This is the complete first season on here. This is another Burn-on-Demand release as well. This is basically, though, about basically people who go into mines and stuff like that, hunting for certain type of jewels and all kinds of stuff underground, and kind of the situations they go into. It's like a reality thing, but it's more of a real kind of show, because they're like showing in other kind of countries in these kind of dangerous areas, and some of the things they get into, they're kind of like, well, if you find these things, don't let anybody find out about this, because they're going to try and kill you, and, you know, it'll be very dangerous, and you might not make it out. So it's a pretty interesting kind of show about, like I said, people going and, you know, going into these mines. This is another one from PBS. This is called Travel Detective Season 3. And it's another one that I liked, talking about like travel experts, talking about like tips for travel and things like that that you wouldn't know of, like hidden gems and like certain kind of like weird, talking about like kind of weird malls in other countries, and kind of shopping and how you can kind of get deals, and talking about flying. And they kind of talk about airline food on, was it this one? Was it Bizarre Foods, I think, talked about airline food? Yeah, I think that one talked about airline food. I'm mixing up this one and that one a little bit. Now, this one was talking about the one thing I learned about chartering flights, and like how you can like charter these kind of planes. So like sometimes when you see those kind of people, they're like celebrity types that have these like private jets, they probably don't really have them, and they're kind of renting them from this service. Like I'm sure a lot of them do, but he was talking about how like anybody could rent a private jet, and like it was like interesting kind of stuff. For like a certain price a month, anyone can do that, like things that I never knew of. And it's like travel tips and all this kind of stuff about seat room and all that kind of stuff. The next one from Breaking Glass Pictures is a movie called Dead Man Apocalypse. This is a movie all set like underground, and it was like in this weird kind of underground thing that looked kind of like the bottom of like pallets or something that you like put food on when you kind of move things. So it was kind of like, and it kind of reminded me of Cuba a little bit because it was kind of like all in these weird areas when you're like kind of traveling through this thing. It's basically set in the future when like water is scarce and the planet is all dying, and kind of had like that Mad Max kind of feel because it's like this guy telling the story to this kid about things, and like it's like this creepy like guy who's like the head of the whole thing is like this creepy bad character, but it's kind of just like these people traveling underground and this family and stuff like that under there. It didn't do it for me too much, to be honest, but it was interesting, I guess, but it was just kind of like weird stuff going on underground and stuff like that. The next one from Screen Media is a movie called Dark, and Brendan Sexton III was in this one too. That was one of the reasons I was interested in seeing this one. And it's about it's kind of another one that's a little bit tough to explain because it was like a lot of odd things happening. But it's basically though about this girl who's, you know, her girlfriend goes out of town the one night, so she's kind of there by herself. And she kind of has like this fear of men, and like and you kind of like these three different characters, and the one guy is the neighbor played by Brendan Sexton III, and this other guy, I think he was like a club or something, and it's like she's like basically though she ends up getting, there's like a big blackout in New York and all the power goes out, so she's stuck in her apartment building by herself, and she's kind of becomes like petrified on the whole thing, and kind of like it's basically just her in this apartment building, and then her like with these odd things going on and kind of things that she's thinking that could happen, so you don't know if they're happening or she's imagining them. But it doesn't have a ton of plot really to it. It's more just like her with this paranoia and this blackout. And the last one here from Full Moon, and this is kind of like a Baby Jane kind of movie. It's a movie called Hollywood Horror House, and it's from Full Moon released this one. And I think it's from 1971. It's this interesting, weird movie about this aging kind of Hollywood-type woman who's in this like big mansion kind of place with these kind of odd characters in there, and this young guy who ends up coming there to basically be her caretaker and take care of her while she's there. Of course, so there's something really up and weird with this guy, and the one woman's noticing there's something really weird. It's just like a really creepy, weird movie about this odd guy taking care of this woman in this weird house. I don't know, it was like kind of before like a lot of things, like before Motel Hell and that kind of stuff, but that kind of feel kind of movie. But it has on here though an introduction by Film Historian on here. It doesn't look outstanding, you know what I mean? It looks okay. I think it's sort of it's like a better print, but it's sort of VHS quality kind of type to it. I do really like the artwork on this one though. But anyway though guys, that's all for this DVD Blu-ray update video. Thanks again for watching and subscribing, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.